In this video, I'm going to talk about coaching. Coaching. Three things. What is coaching? How is it different than mentoring, sponsoring, and a whole host of other things? What is the foundation of coaching? And how to do coaching? Right, so coaching is something that all leaders need to know how to do. It's our responsibility to build the next generation of leaders. If we do not do great succession planning, we are failing our job. So it's important for us to know how to do coaching. So now let's disambiguate coaching from many different things that we hear. Advisor, mentor, supporter, sponsor, coach. There's so many terms that we come across and we interchange and use them. One framework to use, how to distinguish between the two, is to use these two axes. This y-axis is the ask axis. This is low ask, this is high ask. X-axis is the tell axis. High tell, low tell. So if you tell more, if you give advice more, then you are on the left hand side, on the right hand side. But if you tell less, then you're here. Similarly, as a leader, if you think that you're asking more questions, then you're going up here. If you're not asking as many questions, you're going down. So depending on the situation, we will have to change our style depending on the person that we are trying to coach. Some people are not ready to be coached. So it's a very important skill. The most important skill before you start to coach someone is to know whether they are in this quadrant where you will be asking them a lot of open-ended questions and you will not be telling them answers. Can they figure it out? And are they willing to be coached? Only then you can become their coach. If they want you to tell them a lot of answers, then at best you are a mentor. You can still ask them questions. But if the person in your team has no ability to answer all of those questions and you are in a crisis, and then you need to be a clear advisor, a frontline manager saying this is how it needs to be done, let's just do this. So you're telling more, you're asking less, then you're an advisor. You keep advising, saying, hey, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be. You don't take a lot of input, you don't ask any questions, you just come up with the plan and then the team just has to do that. Because the person might not be ready. The person might not have any experience. If you start asking them, hey, what do you want to work on? What is your mission? What's your vision for your career? They might just be out of college and be like lost. It's like, you should know, right? You're my manager. So if you have a person who does not have a lot of experience or does not have that drive or does not want to be making decisions, then you want to be in the role of an advisor. But at the same time, for certain people who have experience, you can graduate your level, your role as a leader, to becoming a mentor, where you do ask them a lot of questions. And the hope there is that they'll start thinking, they'll start answering, they'll come up with ideas. You will also brainstorm. You become a brainstorming board with them. But at times you also tell them. Then you are a mentor. If you give them an answer, or if you lead them to a specific thing that you know is the right answer for you, then you are acting as a mentor. In coaching, you don't answer anytime they ask you questions. And if they want to be coached, it's an exercise that takes intense amount of energy. It's something that takes time to build. But with coaching, it's an open inquiry. It's an inquiry into a set of questions that you ask them so that they can come up with their own answers. There's no telling, there's no advising, there's no closed-ended questions, which is just yes or no, right? It's more open-ended. Let's take an example of a coaching set of questions. Let's say someone that you have identified could be coached, meaning they are ready to be coached, they are willing to do the reflection, they are willing to be vulnerable to share some of the details. They want to work on those coaching sessions, and we'll come back with working on some of those things that there was a coaching session 4. If someone's ready, then you ask them an open question to begin the conversation. Hey, what's working in an area in your life or in your job? If it's job related coaching, you ask them what's working. Once you ask them what's working, you play back saying, hey, I heard this is what is working. Is that right? And then they should say, that's right. That's exactly right. Until you get that confirmation, you need to play back. First is inquiry, right? Right? What's working? And then they'll tell you a few things, you answer back. And then you ask, what's not working? What is it, which area you feel this coaching would be helpful? And then they'll start opening up. But before you do this, maybe you can also ask another question, like what are some of the ground rules? How do you want this coaching to be? And then they might say, hey, I want this to be not personal. I would want this to, give me some, feedback and all of that. So then you can calibrate. But you start with what's working. And then you ask what's not working that requires coaching. And then they'll come up with their own set of reflection. Hey, maybe my time management is not working. I'm struggling with my time management. Let's take an example. And then you say, hey, what about time management that's not working? You go deep. Saying, hey, I keep working like crazy hours and I still don't have time. Okay, why do you think that's the case? Then they'll think, hey, it's because maybe I'm too micromanaging. Great, okay. Then you ask another question. What one step can you take to not micromanage? Look, they have answered all the questions for themselves. And then they can say, hey, maybe I can delegate more of this work to this person. This person has the skill to grow. Then it's like, okay, what's stopping you from doing that? They'll be like, oh, nothing, I just never thought about it. Great. See, you keep peeling the onion, going down with open-ended questions. Remember to keep that not, leading in certain area, then it'll feel like you're leading them to some answer. Keep it open-ended. Keep an open-ended inquiry to really understand the other person. When you do that, you're actually doing coaching. You're getting them to answer for themselves. You're asking a lot, but you're telling nothing. Nothing. You're just asking questions. What's working? What needs work? What are the challenges? How do we take it forward from there? And remember, when you answer what's not working, when you play back, play back with empathy. They might be very rude to themselves, but remember the context. Remember, you need to know the person. Once you know the person, then you can actually play back with empathy. They might say, I suck at time management, but you could say, hey, you do an amazing job for this team. You do too much work. Now you've already recognized them. You need to recognize them for real. So again, coaching is not something that you can just do with any random person. Coaching is something that is personal. It requires time and dedication. You need to know the person. You need to know the whole person. You need to know what are their aspirations. You need to know about their family. You need to know where they are, what struggles that they've gone through. It takes time to first understand the person. So unless you're willing to really understand the person fully, asking anyone, if anyone asks you for coaching, then that's not really helpful because you don't have the context. So you really need to understand the context. And when the other person's opening up, to you as a coach, it's very important for you to take notes. You should ask them, I'm going to take notes. At least mentally you should be taking notes if you feel you're distracting when you're taking notes. Because when you're taking notes, you are respecting the other person who's opened up. So that the next time you meet them, you don't repeat the same things over and over. Saying, hey, how are your kids doing? And then they're like, I don't have kids. Well, when you do that, you've just broken this fundamental thing called trust, right? The other person will feel, this person doesn't even know me or doesn't even care, right? So that brings me to the next piece, which is the foundation of coaching is trust. And trust is built over time. My CEO, Jeff Wiener, used to tell us trust is consistency over time. Very simple. consistency over time. And Mark at Berkeley shared this equation with us, which was really amazing. Trust is credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation, right? So if you have a lot of credibility, if you're an expert in that area, people will trust you. You need to be an expert. You need to do what you say with reliability. If you say you're going to show up for that coaching session, if you say you're going to be at the team meeting on time, you better be on time. That's reliability. Trust includes that you are first knowledgeable, that you are reliable. So you need to be competent. And finally, trust also requires some level of intimacy. You need to give a damn about the other person before they can feel open and vulnerable to share how they feel, what they feel. If you don't take time to really know the person, I think it's very hard to coach. I think it's very hard to build trust. And it's divided by self-orientation. Self-orientation is about like when you're coaching someone, you don't talk about yourself. If you talk about yourself, then you've lost. If the story is about the other person, remember to keep them as prime focus. Don't talk about your updates, you don't talk about your accomplishments and your wins and how good you are. It's meaningless. Coaching session, the other person is the story. You need to focus all on them. Have close to zero self-orientation. You cannot have it zero. So self-orientation, like my professor Mark used to tell us, self-orientation is like blood pressure. You want it low. You want it low. You want it, but you want it low, right? Very low, right? You don't want it to go high. You want it right, low, right? Self-orientation, low. So building trust is the foundation for coaching. And unless you are really intimately caring about the other person, unless you really are including them in your conversation, and if you're just one way talking, you're not asking any open-ended questions, it's very hard to build trust. People will not ask you anything. And you have to be inclusive. You need to really make your people the brand ambassadors. They should feel important. They should feel important, and there should be a clear intention of the coaching session. You need to go in with a specific intention. Why are we meeting? What is that area that you want to talk about? Great coachees will come prepared like with a one-page document. Or they really put in the time. They really value the time. And great coachee also want to give you back. So remember, coach and coachee relationship is not always one way. Because the other person is going to burn out unless the coachee does something to give back to the coach in some way, right? It's very hard actually for the coachee to give back. But it's important to keep this in mind. Like, what can you do to really appreciate them for their time? What can you do for what they're bringing in? It's a lot of energy. Remember, only do your coaching sessions when you have tremendous energy. You don't want to go into a coaching session when your coachee's, pumped up and willing to get your help, and you're like, dude, man, I'm tired, I'm tired. You're tired, you don't even listening, and you don't even have energy, you just haphazardly coming into the meeting. That's not going to work, right? So trust is important to build. Build it with reliability, credibility, intimacy, and low self-orientation, and do it consistently over time. We talked about a few steps to take, like open-ended questions, playing back some of those answers so that they feel that you're actually listening. Track it, if not at the meeting, outside of the meeting. Continue the inquiry and answer with empathy, right? And remember, not everyone needs a coach. Someone might need you to tell them what they should be doing after certain brainstorming. You need to be a mentor, to be an advisor. And then the final one is a sponsor or a supporter. Right? They cheer you. They might put their credibility in line when they become your sponsor, but they'll not ask you much, they'll not tell you much. Right? So this is the progression at some point. When you get a sponsor, when they know that you don't need coaching, you're really awesome, then they're just your sponsor. Like the chairman would be the sponsor for the CEO, because the CEO can do their job. They don't need another coach to coach them. Maybe there's a sounding board, but you become a sponsor or you become a supporter, right? There's an extreme to being a supporter, right? Being a sponsor, which is a supporter, which is you don't really care if your credibility is not in the line. That's the difference. But in both the situation, it's low ask and low tell. If your credibility is on the line as a sponsor, meaning you are willing to say, hey, I bet on this person to do this work, but you're not really involved in the day-to-day, you're not really involved in answering questions for them, then you just open the door for them, but your credibility is in line, then you're a sponsor. If you don't even open the door for anyone, you just like from the audience just cheer them up, then you're just a supporter, right? So that's the support. Need to know very well what is the foundation, how to do coaching, and finally, is this coaching that you're doing, right? And where does it fit in? So we talked about what's working, what needs work, and what's next, right? Basically, you have to end with what are the challenges and how can you take one step forward? What is that one step forward? And the last piece by Angeles Arene, the fourfold way. She came up with these principles that are universal, can be used during coaching as well. First is show up and choose to be present. Show up and choose to be present. Don't come into a meeting that is coaching and then you're just on your phone. Or you're not even attending the coaching meeting on video or in person. You're just doing something else. That's not coaching. You need to be 100% there, right? Show up and be on time. It's an important session. Second, attention to the heart and meaning. Where is the heart at in the conversation? Don't just go superficially in understanding, really understand the heart of the person. What is it that they are trying to, where is it that they feel comfortable? What is meaning for them? What are they trying to really convey, right? When you listen, when you're doing this, remember in coaching, you're doing 80% listening. You just ask a question and then pause and then ask them to answer. Pause, right? So show up, choose to be present, attention to heart and meaning. Tell the truth, but don't blame. Don't use judgment. Very important. If you are mentoring, that's when you're telling the truth. You have to tell the truth, but don't blame and don't judge. You might feel, hey, this person is just so distracted in my team meeting all the time. It could be that it's not all the time. It's just maybe one time. Maybe they have a real serious problem at home. Don't judge. You never know what's really going on for the other person. Give them the benefit of doubt. Happens over time, then you want to really talk to them. But don't judge in the first. Give them the benefit of doubt. Don't blame. Be open to outcome and not attached to the outcome. If you're really coaching, then you're always open to outcomes. If you're mentoring, you may ask leading questions, but you cannot be attached to them. Then you're not really a true mentor. You're actually an advisor. If you know what the answer is and you're asking all kind of questions, just get to the answer. Then you're an advisor. You're like a micromanager in some sense. Say, hey, do this. You don't really trust your team. Trust your people. Trust them. Coach them. Invest your time in becoming a better coach. It's our responsibility to become better coach. It's our responsibility to have great plan for succession, to leave the workplace in a much better spot than what we found it. It's our absolute responsibility. Let's become the best in class coaches possible.